Okay, so if you're a manager, you know this feeling. The technical stuff, the spreadsheets, the timelines, that's often the easy part. The real challenge, the thing that keeps you up at night, it's those messy, unpredictable, and honestly, super frustrating people problems. Well, in this explainer, we are breaking down a really powerful framework from Nanette Carroll's The Communication Problem Solver that's going to help you turn those headaches into straightforward business conversations. Let's just dive right into a scene that is probably way too familiar. You've been there, right? A meeting that's supposed to be about a project update somehow completely goes off the rails and spirals into personal attacks, blaming, and people getting super defensive. It's exhausting, it's a total waste of time, and it happens more than we'd like to admit. So, what's really going on here? And that really is the core question we're tackling. Unlike a budget that doesn't balance or a machine that's broken, people problems don't come with an instruction manual. They feel personal, they feel emotional, and they can feel impossibly complicated. To even begin to solve this, we've got to get to the root of why these issues feel so different and so much harder than almost any other problem on our to-do list. And this right here, this gets to the heart of it. These problems are so overwhelming because they aren't logical puzzles. They're emotional triggers. They just push our buttons, which makes it almost impossible to step back and think clearly and analytically about what's actually happening. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The book proposes a solution that's all about a partnership between two forces you might think are total opposites, but they're absolutely essential to communicate effectively. So, on one side, you have relationships. This is the world of emotion, trust, gut feelings, right? And on the other side, you've got process. That's the world of hard facts, clear steps, and pure logic. Now, the mistake so many of us make is thinking we have to pick a side. But the real magic, the real power, happens when you bring them together. This is the big takeaway. When you combine the trust you've built through a strong relationship with the absolute clarity of a logical process, you literally transform those vague, frustrating people issues into solvable business challenges. It stops being personal and it becomes professional. All right, so let's see how this actually works. We're going to look at a super powerful technique that puts this whole idea into action. And it all starts by breaking one very common and very destructive habit that most managers have. We all do this, a lot of the time without even realizing it. When we get frustrated with someone's performance, our brain just looks for a shortcut, right? A simple label to explain the whole problem. This is what the book calls the judging habit. Come on, let's be honest for a second. Have you ever been in a meeting, or maybe just venting to a colleague, and you've used a label like this to describe one of your team members? Of course you have. It's a totally natural reaction when you're frustrated. And here they are, the greatest hits. Lazy, difficult. Oh, he's just got a bad attitude. She's just not committed. I mean, these labels might feel kind of satisfying to say in the moment, but they create a massive roadblock to actually fixing anything. This is the light bulb moment. You cannot solve an opinion. Think about it. How do you fix a bad attitude? How do you create an action plan to decrease laziness? You can't. But you can solve a factual, observable behavior. And that simple shift in thinking is the entire key. So the big question is, how do you break that judging habit and get to the facts? Well, there's a simple, and I mean incredibly effective, 4-step process that helps you turn that raw frustration into a really productive conversation. So here it is. It's a framework that pulls the emotion out and puts logic in. You start with your raw, judgmental thought. Get it out. Then, step 2, you force yourself to translate it into what you can actually see and hear. And once you have that, you can brainstorm real solutions and agree on a concrete action step. Let's look at a perfect example of how this works. Your judgment, your as-is problem, is the old dog foreman hates change. That's a personal opinion, and it's basically unsolvable. But when you dig for the observable fact, what you actually see and hear, you find out something crucial. He hasn't had any training on the new tasks. See? All of a sudden, this isn't a personality problem, it's a training gap. And a training gap is something you can absolutely fix. So let's talk about the payoff here. When you start doing this consistently, turning your judgments into facts, it will fundamentally change the dynamic of every single difficult conversation you have to have. It's a total game changer. I mean, think about it. If you tell someone they have a bad attitude, what happens? Their walls go up. They get defensive. It's an attack.
But if you say, hey, I noticed that in our last 3 team meetings, you haven't shared any ideas, you're just stating a fact. That approach invites them to be a partner in solving a business problem, not an enemy in a personal fight. And the positive results here are so clear. For you, the stress just melts away because you're dealing with concrete issues. You're focused on the work, not on someone's personality. And what this does is it actually builds trust. It strengthens your relationships, and it leads to real solutions that empower your entire team to succeed. Ultimately, it really comes down to reframing these conversations in your own head. This isn't some big, scary confrontation. It's a transaction. You're treating a performance issue with the same calm, logical, process-driven approach you'd use for a budget problem or a supply chain issue. It's just business. And with that, let's make this real for you. I want you to think about a frustration you have right now with someone on your team. What's the label you've put on them, even if it's just in your own head? Now, how can you translate that judgment into an observable, undeniable fact? And what are you going to do with that new information tomorrow?